Welcome to Locally Sourced. I'm Armanda Famiglietti. There's something pretty extraordinary going on in Putnam Valley. It's called the Tompkins Corners Cultural Center, and it's bringing community and traditions and the arts together. And tonight I'm very happy to have its president, Mark Weiss. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Armanda.
So
Great
Mark,
to be here.
I'm so glad you came. Tell me the story of Tompkins Corners.
The story of Tompkins Corners is a long history. The Corners is one of three Adams Corners and Argonne Corners in Putnam Valley along Peekskill Hollow Road. But the Tompkins Corners Cultural Center was started, I guess, about 4 years ago or 5 years ago, or Kate Hoekstra would tell me even a little longer. People who were living in the area were seeing the Methodist Church was thinking that they could not continue. The local Methodist church.
So it was an active church.
It was a very active church. It's featured in a movie, one of John Cohen's movies, who lives on Peekskill Hollow Road. I'll be mentioning a lot of names because I think that sort of builds community as we talk. John made a movie in 1973 called 50 Miles from Times Square. And it was about, Tompkins Corners was featured in that movie, the Methodist Church, the church socials, outdoors, lots of activity. But by, I guess, 2010 or so, maybe even a little earlier, there were two Methodist churches, and they weren't, I don't know if they were in total agreement with each other, so they both coexisted. And then the Tompkins Corners Church decided it was time to sell and put it up for sale, and for a couple of years, it kind of floundered around. It didn't get sold, and then all of a sudden this group that had come together, some of whom or many are on our board. We have a 7-member volunteer board. They put in a bid, and got a mortgage and all of the things that volunteers don't necessarily know about. We had to learn about along the way. And I was not part of that original group, but I've lived in Putnam Valley for more than 20 years, since 1996. And so they bought the church, and they said,
they incorporated as a nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit. It's a 501c3. And so that makes it brings us together to take care of it. There's no boss really or anything, but a group of us who
you don't have an executive director. You're the president, and that's sort of the.
That's right, exactly. We have a steering committee that knows that it's functioning as an executive director, and we're thinking these are steps that we need to take, just like we need to figure out where everyone's going to park, or how we're going to maintain a building that's 120 years old. All of those are for over 3 years or more. The challenge of what we have to do.
The building is actually in the National Register, right? That's a very historic place. You wouldn't want to see anything happen to that.
Performers come, and they say first they love the feeling of community, and we always have food and welcome them and take care of them. And if they want to stay overnight, we give them a place to stay. We're very much warm in that way. So yeah, it's we're building something that takes a lot of effort, and the building itself is something that is part of that. We just got a grant from Preserve New York, which is a state kind of entity, and it's not a huge grant, but it's a grant to study what is it that this building needs in order for it to continue over a period of time. And so an architectural firm, Stephen Tilley, and they'll bring in engineers, and we'll get a report that says you better fix the steeple, or the most I guess scariest part would be your floor is going to sink or something like that. Something you don't see, like in our homes, where I got to spend money on that and no one will ever see it, but. That's what
you have to redo all your electrical
or
plumbing. And
we did some of that, yes.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but I want to, I'm interested in, you mentioned the community and all of that, and you folks have come along. I mean, it's a hopping place over there. And so tell me about the people who got there before you. How did you all know each other? How did you all come together? Did you learn about each other when something said, hey, let's do something with this church and let's make it a cultural center? And tell us that story.
It's so many stories, I think. It's the stories of people coming together around music. Judy Allen and John Allen, John Cohen, and the Hoekstras. I was thinking 4 generations of Hoekstras. Jan and Kate live across the road, and their kids live down the road, and their grandchildren live down the road, and so they were a group that were involved. So people knew each other. We stood on shoulders, other people's shoulders, as so many movements to build community and change the world, if you will, have done that. So there was a place called the Night Kitchen in Putnam Valley, and it was on Lake Peekskill, and it was very similar in some ways to what we did. They had Friday night, Saturday night events, and people came together to
Was it a
listen
restaurant?
to. It was us. They had food.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it was maybe a formal restaurant. I remember being there. Just as an aside, my wife and I were married in the oldest church, Methodist church. My wife's parents bought it at Oregon Corners, and it's just a quarter of a mile up from Oregon Corners, and it's now a residence. And her parents were the ones that bought it when it was the church and made it into a residence.
Oh.
Her father was an artist.
Wow.
So
this keeps
we have a history.
recurring in
I
your
feel
life.
like this is a family passion or
maybe
something.
you should become a Methodist. Maybe that's,
Thinking. I think
the
I already
message.
am, actually.
You already are.
That's a great story. We were sitting in one of our meetings, a committee meeting in the reception room in the church, and a guy walks in on a Sunday and says, "Is the pastor still here?" And I looked up and I said, I know we had a tradition to live up to. I said, "Well, not exactly. We're a cultural center, but what can we do for you?" And he said, "Well, I need a little money. I'm going to visit my kids in Montauk, and I need some money for gas." And he told us a sad story. So each of us pulled out a few bucks, and we gave him a little bit of money, and he off to Montauk, I suppose.
Jeez. Jeez.
So we're there.
Maybe you should
we're
get some money
Methodists.
from the relative in Montauk because that's pretty expensive out there. Anyway.
It all comes around. In my view, it does. Anyway.
So let me go back to the mission. And
Yes.
when I was on your website, which is very informative,
Thank you.
I saw a mission that was a little different from most arts groups' missions, and it said
I didn't study it before this get together.
Well, maybe
but
you
let's
should
hear
check
it.
it out at some point. It says you want to sustain and promote community development, including tourism, and that you want a long-term investment and growth and youth retention in your community, as well as short-term responses for a robust center for the arts. And that's why is there an interest in investment in the community and tourism, and where did that come from? That's
Well, when you're incorporating, I guess, and when you write those business plans, you're trying to reach out to all different audiences. So that's a language maybe that you wouldn't necessarily hear in a cultural center.
Okay, so I thought you had some strong mission
but you know what's really
to drive tourism.
Do you
to
know
your
I
place.
was at the opening of the new restaurant bar at Oregon Corners. It just yesterday or the day before, I guess, during the weekend. And we're members of the Putnam Valley Business Network. We're members, therefore, of the Putnam County Chamber of Commerce, where you got to care about these things. You got to be where people are. You have to connect with each other. So if you build that, you're ultimately building the base of people who fill up the house. And we don't have an enormous house, but we had 36 events in the last season.
36 events.
Yeah.
And how many people seat?
We seat about 100, I would say. A little over 100. We can sort of squeeze people in as you could tell, maybe in a variety of places, or standing room only sometimes. And
really?
people don't mind doing that, they just stand on the side. And sometimes it's easier to stand than sit in a hard pew
I
for
tell
an
you,
hour
that
or two.
was my complaint. It's like,
Oh, we got to get those cushions, huh?
And every time I moved, the cushion moved with me. And,
Okay.
All right.
Right.
But
We need this feedback.
I have to say that I was delighted that I went, because what I saw was a reading of a play. It was a reading. It wasn't a play. Fantastic actors, great direction, and a great play.
Both from soap operas, those two actors. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah,
yes,
well,
right? Yeah.
Paul Xavier has been on, on a lot on our community access.
Right.
So, but I was very impressed, and it was a great evening, and everybody loved it, and all the volunteers and everyone associated had such great energy and were so nice. And I can understand why you're drawing big crowds.
We love the connection. Alice John Keller, who wrote that that play, just not so long ago, bought a place in Sedgwood, the Sedgwood Club along Route 301, and so she came over and saw the place and loved it and said, I want to do something here. And Judy Allen, who was our person who does the theater stuff, if you will, not that we're all not involved in everything, but they got together, and so that's how that connection, that personal relationship connection is.
But it was very high quality, so...
Maybe we're having a retreat to talk about our mission, and I think one of the interesting parts is we've organically realized that the quality of programming, if you will, of events is really important. You can't it's not like, just as maybe you would make a quilt or something.
Right. You have to be a little discerning.
Take pieces that don't fit together, and then you don't have much of a quilt, and we need pieces that feel like they fit together.
So I went to a play reading, and when I was on your Facebook page, I just saw all the posters of the different acts and events and everything that's going on there. And so I copied a few, and I'm going to show them, and I'm going to hope that you sort of take us through, like what?
Okay.
That's a pretty impressive performer.
Well, David Amram, who's a world music person.
Can we go back to that one?
The previous.
We'll let you know when we need a new one. Thank you.
You want to stick with that?
Yes, I want you to tell me about David Amram.
Right, but I want to tell you about the posters for a minute.
Oh,
Can I tell you about that? John Cohen was he was a professor at SUNY Purchase, among amazing other things. He's a photographer. He's a filmmaker. If you want pictures of Bob Dylan in the 1960s, John Cohen took those pictures. He's an original and a member of the...
Is he tall?
Not that tall, no.
Oh, okay, because I met someone I thought named John.
Oh, John Allen, that's Judy's husband.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And John was a member of the New Lost City Ramblers, which was an old-time music group in the 1950s. So John took us to SUNY Purchase to meet a professor there who said, we want to take you on and we want to help you sort of brand, I guess you'd say. And that's how all of these flyers got to be looking sort of like we actually know what we're doing when we do publicity.
So let's see that Amram poster.
So David he's all over the world. We're talking about John and David.
He lives over at the Gypsy Trail Road too, doesn't he?
Now he's in Beacon, New York.
Oh,
we had a bad winter 2 winters ago, and David said, "This is it for me. I can't do it anymore." We're talking about people who are in their 80s, mid-80s, who you would never know it because they're so vital and amazing. So David has done a concert every year for us. He did an original outdoor concert when we first started. It was one of the first we had, and everybody was sitting around on that lawn out there. And I don't know where we parked the cars that night. But, and I actually wasn't in. That's when I was starting to get involved and getting interested in what had happened.
Here's another one.
And I think that those are friends of Judy Allen and people who do plays. And
that's every Monday night, I think. It's still going on?
That's, yes. And that's right.
So if you're interested in playwriting, or
exactly, they get together.
So even an amateur could come, or
I haven't been there yet, but I know I'm invited, and I could go there and do some soliloquy or whatever. And
well, I think you'd have to write
and
it
act
first,
like a fool,
and then we could do
whatever
it
takes.
Let's see another poster.
Yeah. Cedric Watson, and we have a really great connection to the Old Tone Roots Music Festival in Hillsdale, New York, every year. It's up there, it's wonderful, and I went this year for the first time. And Cedric Watson, between that and John Cohen's connections in his folk music history, old-time music history, had Cedric Watson come. I think Bill Malloy actually was the guy who made this connection. Bill does work at Old Tone, and Bill is on our board. Okay. So that's how we... And
we can see another one?
Here we go.
Okay, here's something else you do.
Every Friday, I'm thinking of names now. God, okay, I'll have to let it go. But we have a person who sponsors this for us. And it's every Friday in the summer. And so at the end of June, The first Friday was June 29th this year. And we have fruits and vegetables
Where
from
do they
Kurt's.
come from? Are they organic, or what's the story there?
Well, Kurt's, which is on its way on Division Street into Peekskill, he has a farm market, and himself, that's a store, but he brings a truckload of
so
fruits
it's
and
one
vegetables.
farmer?
Yeah, and others.
Like
Now
one
we had somebody who
market.
brought beef and lamb, and I bought some of that. I mean, it's small, but it's great, and crazy things happen. One Friday afternoon, I said hello to the people. I like to say hello to people.
Yeah, no kidding.
You could tell. Right. So this German couple said, we were just visiting this country, and we were riding along the road, and we saw the farmer's market.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great. Come on in. I want to show you around. I showed them the church.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, no, it's exciting.
And they'll join your board now, right?
And they'll join, exactly.
And what's this, the Halloween party? Did I miss the Halloween party?
This was, yes, our Celtic Halloween party, which is, there's a connection between Halloween and Irish history. And Kate Hoekstra, who's an O'Connor in her maiden name, I think it is. Kate put this together with Neil Hickey and Linda Thornton and a bunch of friends of Tompkins Corners and of theirs. And so we had a great concert last Sunday
so
afternoon
are those
ago.
professional musicians, or are those the people you just mentioned
I guess
in
you'd
that
say,
photo?
those are locals, but professionals. I mean, each one, and
We're so
and
lucky,
also
aren't we, in this area?
really,
We have so many great...
it's amazing.
I think maybe proximity to
such
New York.
talent.
And
we have filmmakers. I mean, we have a whole. I see this as an open mic night, but just while I'm thinking of the filmmakers,
we'll get to that. So talk about open mic night.
Open mic. Well.
Do you have them
when
frequently?
You mentioned our interest in youth and youth development, and so we've got a really strong connection to our local schools, Putnam Valley schools.
Terrific.
And we're reaching out beyond. And that open mic night was a school event where the kids put it all together themselves.
And just to remind you, we'll ask for the photos as we need them.
Yeah.
So what's going on here? This is actually inside the venue, right?
Yes. You know what? I can't see. You're right. I can't see.
There are just two lonely musicians on stage, and I don't know who they are, but...
I should have studied it before I...
All right, we can see another photo now. And as you can see, it looks like a church.
Yeah.
And this is outside. You do outside things as well. What's that?
This is from Family Arts Day, and it's called Arm of the Sea. And this was a Putnam Arts Council grant that we got. Some of the things we want to do, we can't afford to do because we don't want to charge a lot.
Right. Do you pay all your performers?
So we pay, unless we have an event where we ask them to donate their time and their talent. Okay. But we definitely are committed to that, and we explain in advance that we respect performers. We serve dinner and stuff like that.
Okay, so look, another poster has appeared.
There you go.
Now, the sweet spot is actually the show that I saw, and it was terrific.
That's
and what's
great.
above it there?
Would you
this
believe
is a two-part poster.
The morning you were at the sweet spot, we had Music Together is a 25 or 30-year-old organization that serves little people all over the United States. And that's Uncle Jerry up there on the upper right. And so it was the 25th anniversary of Linda Thornton's involvement with Music Together, who works with us. She's a hospitality coordinator and a producer of some of our shows and events. So on Saturday morning, we had a full house, just about, with Music Together. And then on Saturday evening, we had another full house on the same day for this little... this little place that could, right?
Yeah, really. I was and not only that, but it was pouring rain.
And exactly.
And muddy. So I was very impressed. Now, the donation was only $10. That went kind of fast there.
That's right.
Let's keep this one on for a while, this photo.
Okay.
You don't charge very much. You're paying these performers, but you're not charging the public.
Well, they're generous with us, and they appreciate. They often connect what they're doing at our place maybe to another concert, maybe in Albany, and then another concert in Connecticut, and we try to put that together. And they seem to love the venue. They look at the website, they see the flyers, they realize that we've had a quality series of events over time. So they're okay with it.
Okay, now
and they love it. I want to say the words they use about the space are sacred and magical.
Ooh.
And they say the acoustics are the best acoustics they've ever heard.
Oh, okay, that's
and you
important.
Could right? You could even tell from the play, I think.
So here's one of my favorite regional performers here, Jonathan Crook.
Love Jonathan.
And what's he doing there?
He's doing his one-person show.
Yeah, is it Sleepy Hollow?
That would be Legend of Sleepy Hollow, I'm pretty sure. And he's doing A Christmas Carol coming up, as I think you might know.
December 14th.
Yes, Friday night.
I would imagine that's a sellout.
It will
be.
All
the characters.
Well, the other part is we're so local, and we know people know us, and they know they can walk in and buy a ticket right away. You would say, we'd imagine it's a sellout, but at 7, I'm a parking person, so I wait for people to come and park their cars.
I have to say, my hat's off to those parking people in the rain, trying to squeeze us in.
That's right. Line up here, do this, whatever, and also welcome you. And
yeah.
And I think someone said the show you were at, a lot of people were there for the first time.
Right.
So then
they asked us how many.
So then the parking is a challenge because it's like, what is going on here? This is not the Walmart parking lot.
You know what I think it was, actually? I'm just going to say this, that there was an ad for that show that said Mary Beth Hurt was going to be in the show. And I thought, wow, Mary Beth Hurt. So, but she wasn't when I got there.
Yeah, she did. She was almost at
the bait and switch works well, I think.
Well, it wasn't intentional. She just turned out that she couldn't do it, and they were scattering around to find another person to do it.
Well, the woman who did it was great.
That's
so
great.
I was not disappointed once
Terrific.
I saw it.
Good.
So you're a nonprofit. We talked about that. It sounds like you're getting grants, which is phenomenal for an organization that doesn't have a long track record.
We're lucky.
You know that the connection the organization I worked for.
Tell me more.
Well, I worked for Nathan Cummings Foundation.
Oh, exactly. We talked about that.
So, and we funded your other big part of your life, which we'll talk about in another show.
Okay.
But so tell us how people who want to support Tompkins Corners can do it.
Well, the best way is to get to know us and then support us. It doesn't happen that, I mean, they may see the show and love it and say they want to make a donation. That would be great. But what often happens is people come to a show, they love it. They start to realize that they want to become involved. They start baking for the intermission.
I know. I saw some tasty treats
good
on
stuff.
that table.
You could get a real great meal, and no matter what, So that, and then they start realizing that we have a mortgage and that we have this development that we want to do in terms of keeping up the building. That the church itself is 120 years old, but the shed is 150 years old.
Wow!
And you can see the hooks that the horses used to tie the carriages onto these rings that are inside the shed.
Great.
So they just start giving, and this is our end of year giving time.
Don't
and
forget
we send
Giving
out
Tuesday.
letters pleading for money. That's right.
Are you participating in Giving Tuesday?
I don't know if we are this year, but more because we have such a really powerful mailing list. Because people sign in when they come in, and it's about 1,000 people, and so it sustains us pretty well. But there's a lot more we could do.
Yeah. Well, just to remind people, Giving Tuesday is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Right.
And it's a movement sort of throughout the country for supporting nonprofits on Giving Tuesday, giving thanks to organizations
you may have
that
just
are so
inspired
important.
us to participate.
It wouldn't hurt to send out a broadcast.
When is this going to be on?
to everybody. So we talked about Jonathan Crook and A Christmas Carol. I think he plays 30 characters himself.
Yeah, right.
That's going to be great.
Fantastic.
And a nice
community
holiday thing to do. What else is coming up? You have Tai Chi.
We have Tai Chi. That's great. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of all these wonderful things. I'm there a lot, but
I'm beginning to wonder.
Tim Pitt does Tai Chi, and it's on Saturday mornings.
And
so
is there
you can
a
just
fee to
look it up.
participate?
There's a small fee. It's not big enough. If you're committed to Tai Chi, you'll go. You'll go and you'll do it. This coming Friday night, November 9th, John Cohen is showing another of his movies, which is called High Lonesome Sound, about music from Kentucky in the olden days. This is black and white movie making, which is just beautiful.
What was the name again?
High Lonesome Sound. It's John the word discovered.
High Lonesome Sound.
High Lonesome Sound. It features Roscoe Holcomb, who is an old-time music banjo player and singer who can. A lot of those folks came to New York in the 40s and 50s, were kind of, quote, discovered by people who were then making music like John and New Lost City Ramblers and folks like that. And then they became they were the foundation for the folk music revival of the early 60s. And so that's sort of where all that comes from. But John is amazing because he has young friends who he's bringing with him that night.
He has young friends.
Very young, wonderful musicians. He's part of the Downhill Strugglers, a group that nice name, right? Yeah, and
I like that better than High Lonesome, whatever that is.
High Lonesome Sound. Well, that has a lot of legs. People think of, how do you describe the music of Kentucky, of old time music in Kentucky? High Lonesome Sound.
Oh,
it's pretty poetic.
Okay. Now I'm getting it in
You
context.
get the feel, right?
So people who want to participate and come to these shows, they can buy their tickets online, right?
They can. Brown paper tickets. You can do that, or you can just reserve by calling, or you can just come on the night of it.
And they can go to your Facebook page and like it, and then they'll get all the information on their Facebook page.
And our mailing list is really key because we really we don't overdo it, but at the same time, the week before, you're going to get a little notice that something's happening.
Okay,
and that's pretty powerful.
I want to thank you and all of your friends, your happy group of friends over there at Tompkins Corners Cultural Center. Just say where the address is.
729 Peekskill Hollow Road.
Yay.
And in a place called Tompkins Corners. Sounds like a good movie or something.
I seen the sign and then I go like, well, where is this place? And it's like another, bit down from Tompkins.
You got another second?
No, we don't have. Okay, what? Yeah.
We just put up a sign that said Tompkins Corners Cultural Center. We have a great logo that shows the church, but we realized we were seeing people who said, but where exactly is it? Because we never had something that said...
Oh, a sign.
So there's a sign that says, it's right on the road. You can...
Well, I just tell everybody who, who wants to get involved with culture and arts and a great community, go on over to the Tompkins Corner Cultural Center.
And let's connect with each other.
And let's connect. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
It was a real pleasure. And thanks to the crew who comes out all the time and to those of you who watch.